Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the Computer America Show. We have a action-packed lineup of guests today. Both of them have 3D in their name, but one is a video game developer, and we're going to talk about their newest release and their open beta that they're currently having. And in the second hour, we have a 3D printing company, and we're going to talk about their newest 3D printer and just what it is that they do and how they do it. So stay tuned as we try to get our guest on. Hopefully, Artix is going to be on just in time for this. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as the Computer America Show is about to start in just a matter of seconds. So here we go.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live, it's America's longest-running national radio talk show on computers, Computer America, hosted by national columnist Craig Crossman. Look for Craig's weekly column in your favorite newspaper. This show is being beamed nationwide at computeramerica.com. Keep it here for technology news, computer products, guest interviews, and your phone calls. You're listening to Computer America. Computers run the world, and we run computers. Call us or send us an email to live@computeramerica.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the Computer America Show. Sorry about that late start, folks, but hopefully you all are having a wonderful, wonderful day as we get into our Gamer Tuesday here on the Computer America Show. And now we are, now we are just trying to get our guest on, who is actually just joined us. So perfect. So we're going to ask that. Perfect. So there's Mr. Adam right there, and we're gonna put him on mute for a second. But there we go. And so that's our first hour guest, and we're gonna have on Mr. Adam Bohn, who is going to be on the show here with us in the first segment, where we're going to talk all about his new video game and everything that has to do with it. It's going to be a great, great interview. Looking forward to it a lot. And again, in the second part of the show, we have Markforged 3D Printing, who talks all about their newest, latest, and greatest 3D printer and how they are so different from anything else you've seen when it comes to 3D printing. Now, before we get to our guest, I really want to make this clear that if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just want to say anything to us about the show, about the guest, feel free to drop us an email to live@computeramerica.com. We'll get it, we'll respond to it, and we'll do everything that we can to help you out, be it tech support, be it a question for a guest, or a suggestion for another guest. We'd be happy to do that. Also, check out computeramerica.com and all of our social media sites so that you can enter a contest every single Friday. We give away a great prize from our friends over at Logitech. And right now we're giving away Keys to Go. It's a $70 product and very, very nice. Check that out indeed. And then the only other thing I want to say is that if you want links or if you want archives or anything else to do with today's interviews, links to the guest websites, links to the games that we're going to be talking about, links to anything, check out computeramerica.com. And in today's show notes, we'll have all the links directly on our homepage pointing out to directly where you want to go. Should be just that simple. Check it out indeed. Now, with that being said, I don't want to beat around the bush here too long because with the new format, things go a little bit quicker than usual. So I want to welcome onto the show, and his name is Adam Bohn, and I've heard many deviations of the last name. So, but yeah, Mr. Adam Bohn is going to join us. He is the founder and CEO of Artix Entertainment. And I think it's going to be a great interview where we're going to talk about their newest game, which is, again, AdventureQuest 3D. So, Adam, I don't know if you can hear me, but welcome onto the show, and you can take yourself off mute. One second, folks.
Oh, I was muted. Greetings and salutations.
There you go. Hi, hey, Adam. What's up? How's it going?
It's awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show to talk about what me and the team have been working on.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. We, over the past couple of weeks and months, we've actually had on many, many different developers from large developing companies all the way down to, one of my favorite interviews was with a gentleman who quit his job at a large development studio and for 5 years worked on one game as a one-man development studio.
Oh, wow.
And, it's always entertaining to hear all the different development companies and what they have to go through and what makes them unique. So I'm really looking forward to what Artix Entertainment has been up to. So
I love hearing stories like
go for it.
Like your previous guest, that like the passion and the drive that, I mean, I do think that, to do this, you have to have something wrong with your head, and what it takes to wake up and kind of take the punishment that you take online and then fighting through it to ultimately get that game that everybody really wants to play.
Yeah, it really seems to be, I mean, again, he was making a really steady income. He worked for movie companies and things like that, doing special effects. But at some point, it's about the passion. It's about what you really enjoy and what you really like to do. And I guess, again, as the founder and CEO, this must speak to you on some level that, sure, there's a money aspect. You can do it for a living. But if you don't have the passion, you're not going to be in it for long.
Well, we're not here because of money. Any look at our sale will tell you that. Back in 2002, I had just moved to Florida. I left the Silicon Valley right before the dot-com bubble burst.
Right.
And I came because I wanted to go work with my father, and he was going to teach me how to do business stuff. So of course I came down to build a cruise ship. That's right, folks. You all tuned in to hear about a video game thing. Now they're going, wait, this guy builds cruise ships? What? No, I never built a cruise ship. But I came down, and in my spare time, since basically I've been so today we're celebrating the launch of Mogloween and AdventureQuest 3D. But 14 years ago, we had launched the first AdventureQuest. And it was kind of my lifelong dream actualized. Like ever since I was in middle school, let's say 5th grade,
right?
Like I've always wanted to build a video game. And back in those days, we didn't have Google. We didn't have the solutions. So this new game, Castlevania, had just come out.
Oh, classic.
And we were sitting around rambling on and on and on about how like this game was so awesome. And my father, we were at a restaurant, he goes, if you guys like these games so much, why don't you just go build one? And we're like, what? We could build a game? And we ran home because we didn't live very far from the restaurant. And for the next couple hours, we tried to make a video game. And it turns out you can't make a video game in Microsoft Word. It didn't happen. So we were like, well, we need to learn how to do this. And we went to the bookstore, and we started getting all these books, and we shoveled snow to earn money. And like the books were expensive. They were like $20 a pop. And back then that was like, you might as well have been a millionaire. And we finally started like goofing around with stuff. And then I built like, all these like little, like everybody is always like, I'm going to build the greatest game of all time.
That's everyone's goal, definitely.
But of course, I just failed and failed and failed. And some 1,000 terrible game corpses later, I just moved down to Florida, and I'm here to build a cruise ship. And in my spare time, I'm working on, video game stuff.
Right.
And I had this really neat idea because Flash was just becoming like super accepted everywhere. I mean, I've been using it since the first version, but it had like super adoption rates in 2002. And we built this little game called AdventureQuest. And it was kind of like a cloud-based game before anybody used the term cloud.
Yeah.
And people really liked it. And we weren't trying to make money. It was completely free. It was just completing that goal of building a video game. And
I mean, and really, when you go back and look at some of the screenshots,
then you cry yourself to sleep. No.
Well, no, they very much remind me of kind of like the Neopets kind of feel. I mean, that's just what Flash games were back in the day when it came to web-based video games, but they were fun. I mean, it was definitely something that you could play with your friends. You could play with your friends with. It was
right. That was a golden age of web games. Habbo Hotel and Club Penguin didn't come out yet. RuneScape had been out.
Right.
Puzzle Pirates.
Yeah.
And we ran into a problem pretty fast. We got hit by a $5,000 bandwidth bill for our completely free game. And you have to make a really tough choice, right? Because I could have just said no and quit. But I was like, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for this, and we're going to ask people to send us donations to keep the game online. And that's how we created a guardianship. And the first guardians were the people that chipped in and helped keep that game online. And, our kind of motto is we're just going to make it better every week. And I'm very proud, and I'm very proud of the team that built the original AdventureQuest, that is currently running the original AdventureQuest. That game has been updated every single week for 14 years. Never missed one.
Yeah,
even Saturday Night Live and South Park take like times off, but we've never missed a weekly release.
That is definitely insane. And of course, with that, continuous development, obviously you need strong ties with your community. You need strong ties with your fan base and user base, because again, if they're going to be your greatest source of what needs fixed and what needs added.
Our community is the backbone of our games. I mean, it's changed over time because now we have social media and like 10 million outlets. But in the simpler days, when we just had a forum, we had one funnel where players came in, they gave us ideas, and we made this stuff. And it was how quickly we made it and how accessible the entire team was. Mm-hmm. And we built up a relationship. And that's why a lot of those players are still around. And, it's 14 years later. And we have just, and I mean, literally last Thursday, we just released the open beta of AdventureQuest 3D.
Yeah, and definitely we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the open beta, definitely something that we want to plug here on the show. I think we're going to have a link to that in the show notes if anyone wants to check that out. But let's get into maybe someone who hasn't heard of AdventureQuest, and in your 14 years of travel on the internet, you have not stumbled upon AdventureQuest. So why don't you tell us what AdventureQuest is, and kind of the idea behind the game, and then kind of how that morphed into AdventureQuest 3D and where are some of the differences.
Sure. Back in the day when dragons ruled the earth, the original game was this really quirky, weird monster battling game. And the idea was that you could just log in from any computer, which was the only way to play games back in those days. Mm-hmm. And you just battle monsters, and you'd fight, and you'd get gold, and you'd level up your character. And the monsters and weapons were different. They did things. And that original game, what made it so unique wasn't just that, a lot of times we'd have these topical special releases, but like the weapons could fly out of your hand and just randomly do stuff. And the monsters could have code that wasn't in the game engine. And this was because we created it using Flash, which was a prototype-based language, which let you do things that every programmer probably listening to this is like, oh God, no, don't let people code like that. Because a weapon could literally take control of the game and change the gameplay. And we built some very creative and fun things that, it was every week it was a new adventure, and we just kept pushing the envelope. We started doing seasonal releases. We started doing wars where all of the players would team up. And by teaming up, everyone's playing by themselves, but they were part of this giant global force of players that were battling monsters to push up a meter to win a war. And once they got enough kills, they beat the army, and then they moved on to the boss monster. And then the plots were updated real time, and often they were updated because the player feedback on the forums would be like, aha, they're all expecting this. Let's do this instead.
Yeah, just having that, it sounds like your development team, I've been playing, World of Warcraft for like 10, 11 years. Sorry if I draw a comparison to that because, again, obviously not a one-to-one, but at the same time, real-time development just isn't really a thing with video games anymore. It's months in advance that they announce something, and then they work on it, they patch it, they beta it, and then, you get to kind of, touch a finished product. But what you're describing really doesn't happen much anymore in video games.
I know, and I was just in a meeting literally an hour ago where our programmers were telling me how unbelievably stupid it is we're trying to do what we're doing. Because you really do need especially with the 3D stuff, you need a much longer period of time to test and change things. And whenever we do talk about AdventureQuest 3D, I'd like to talk about like how the development's changed in this new world from what we used to be able to do. Because Flash, we could quite literally, change the game under your feet and just force load things, and you wouldn't even know that the game was updating while you were playing it. And that was probably one of the coolest things about the game, especially the second version of AdventureQuest Worlds, which was a true massively multiplayer game. Mm-hmm. And we had a live event where 30,000 people showed up just to play this storyline where, and I did a TEDx talk about this where we ran this live event with this musician called Voltaire, and he's this dark, kind of creepy, spooky musician, really funny guy. And we made a 5-part adventure, and we had all 30,000 people play the adventure like a 5-act play. And they were all playing it at the exact same time. They were all the main character, but they were grouped into rooms that were cloned across like a huge number of servers.
Mm-hmm.
And we've really enjoyed making these kind of unique online experiences. And that was that's what really gets me out of bed in the morning, right? Like kind of doing these weird things that other games aren't doing. And with that game, we could change anything at any time. We could add new weapons and monsters and quests and events and literally just pop it into the game while you're playing and it's there.
Yeah, and like you said, that is something that I guess kind of can't be done in real time anymore.
That's not exactly true. So AdventureQuest 3D, it's definitely harder, but we've already got it working.
Oh,
One of the neatest features of the game is the initial game's like 50 megabytes. You're like, what? You can't have a game that's 50 megabytes? It's like World of Warcraft size? But the game actually streams in off of our servers while you play it. So the initial download is like 50 megs, but as you play, when you see a new sword, the sword gets loaded off our server and then is saved onto your device. And this allows us to, continuously release new things in the game. And soon we're going to have the same features that the previous 2 Adventure Quests had, where we're going to be able to do it without restarting the servers.
Mm-hmm. That, and there you go. That's your secret sauce. So real quick before we get into AdventureQuest 3D, let's talk about the demise of Flash, because Flash, the true host of the show, Craig Crossman, he is an avid Flash hater. Like he hates Flash in all of its different forms. He thinks that Java, can go rot wherever it's currently rotting, and just because so many security vulnerabilities. So my question to you is: are you kind of excited about moving on to something different than Flash, or are you still using Flash, or did Flash just kind of outlive itself?
Well, after having spent the last majority of my life working on Flash games, I can tell you my entire team has a very special love-hate relationship with Flash. It's so incredibly powerful, but it is just a shame that it wasn't. Adobe probably should have made it open source back in 2008. That was the move that probably would have changed everything, because then Google probably would have just fixed it and had the best version.
Right. Very
true. It's kind of a shame that everything's changed into like this closed system, because if you want to be in the App Store, like really the best way to do things is to program directly on Apple devices and their tools. And Flash was really neat because it literally worked exactly the same no matter what platform you moved to.
Right.
And it's really sad to us that Flash is going. I mean, it's also going to mean a lot of work, because we're dependent on the success of this new game project, because we want to take this to be able to reinvest our resources into going back and converting the older games, starting with the previous Adventure Quest, the 2D MMO Adventure Quest Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
We want to bring that forward and release it on all the devices that this new game's on too. I think a lot of our players would be very happy to hear that. And for people who aren't familiar with our games yet, it's probably like weird hearing, wait, so you have an Adventure Quest that's 2D, and you have an Adventure Quest that's 3D, and they share a lot of the same characters, but they're different games.
Right. You'd be actually surprised. I mean, RuneScape came out with like their 10-year anniversary or something like that, or like servers that ran essentially the original RuneScape. And you think a game that was, easily over a decade old, it has like one of the largest game following bases out there. I mean,
it's huge, absolutely huge.
People definitely appreciate the, the storylines and just kind of the games that were made years and years ago. They're, I don't want to say timeless, because obviously there's going to be a time when, they aren't going to have that appeal anymore. But for now, either nostalgia or just good gameplay, games have staying power.
Well, I don't know. You can say that about Star Wars.
Are you talking about Knights of the Old Republic, or are you talking about like the movie series?
I mean, just, it started off, and I mean, Star Wars was actually pretty big when it started, but it's still a thing today.
Oh, yeah.
I think that there's, a very strong, that the RuneScapes, the World of Warcrafts, the Adventure Quests, the Kingdom of Loathings might have some surprising staying power, because every generation kind of goes back to the things that they grew up with.
Right. And I know personally, I went back to Neopets like 2 years ago, and I was like, there's a lot, there's a lot of change stuff, but Neopets is still Neopets, so it is what it is. So let's talk about some of the gameplay with AdventureQuest 3D because wow, we're already like 10 minutes left of the interview. Let's get into some of the meat of this game here because with
dragon meat or gorillafant meat.
What is it? I'm sorry.
Oh, I said dragon meat or gorillafant meat. Don't call PETA.
Right. No. But so what is the gameplay of this game like? Because, obviously when it was 2D, it was kind of point and click and, kind of adventure kind of thing. So is there any kind of combat? Is there, what kind of encounters do players actually kind of face in AdventureQuest 3D?
Well, AdventureQuest 3D is, the coolest thing about it is it's true cross-platform. And that being said, this game is very much like all of the traditional massively multiplayer games you guys are used to. World of Warcraft. Does anybody play anything other than World of Warcraft?
There's EverQuest. There's Knights of the Old Republic. I mean, it's usually just quest, go do something out in the world, come back, get your reward. I mean, it's a pretty simple formula that these kind of curated.
And that's what we did. We recreated our, well, I should say it's an inspired reimagining of our existing world in this 3D space. And what I mean by reimagining is we have some things that existed before, like and we built a lot of weird monsters, the Frogzards and Gorillafants and Sneevils, and we took them and we're going to retell their stories and give them more depth in this 3D game. But we're also building tons of new stuff that we've never tried before. And I think it's a blend of new and old, because we have some of our very popular characters. Mike, the Moglin, Twilly, and Zorback are returning in this game. We've got Galanoth the Dragon Slayer, who lost an arm in AdventureQuest Worlds, comes back and he still has his arm. And the players will have to, it'll take a little while before the story kind of explains where we are in the actual timeline, because it's going to be a little departure from our previous games.
Okay.
But some of the core features, other than real-time combat, we have multi-class system. You can you can collect every class in the game, and you can switch between them at any time as long as you're not fighting. We have 4 classes available right now: Warrior, Mage, Rogue, Guardian. We have 4 getting ready to go, which is Necromancer, Paladin, Ninja, and Dragon Slayer. And then we're probably going to have about 60 by the time the game's mature.
You said 60 or 16?
60.
60, the big number. Oh, that is crazy. Okay.
And this is because of how we're going to do skills. Back in games like World of Warcraft, you had one character and you kind of went down a skill tree.
Right.
And we were like, well, wouldn't it make more sense if you could just collect every flavor? Because if you went down a skill tree, you probably had that one template that everybody was following. Or if you did customize it, it was customized on the points within that tree.
There's always that one statistically optimal
Best.
flavor.
Yeah.
So
we just want to break out all of those classes into unique classes that give you all those flavors. So under Paladin, you'll probably have an Undead Slayer. You probably have some sort of a Holy Paladin type. And we can, further subdivide those things. And some classes you'll have to have prerequisites, like you need Warrior and you need Healer to go and learn Paladin.
I'm trying to think of the game that I played that had a similar system. I want to say it was Rift, where essentially you start as one and then you kind of, like, as you develop, of course it branches off. And I always really liked that system. I mean, that was a system that, you could kind of explore that, hey, let's say you're 20 hours into this character, but you've been a mage, a caster class this whole time, and then you realize, I want to get up in someone's face and stab something. Then you kind of, just kind of rebuild into what you want to do. Like it kind of led to a more interactive gameplay that, lets you develop over time.
Yeah, we were kind of thinking, we're in a dungeon, and this is a true cross-platform game, right? So you can play right now on Android and Apple or Steam on PC and Mac, and everybody plays together. It's not like every split gets its own server. Like everybody logs, like every device is a portal into this world. And you can just hop on, and if you're running a dungeon and you guys need a healer, no problem, I'll switch to healer. Or we need some more DPS. Maybe you're going to go rogue, or maybe we're up against a dragon and we need to bring in somebody to tank the dragon, so someone's going to go Dragon Slayer.
Mm-hmm. No, right. And of course that leads to solving a lot of problems with some of the other MMOs, where it's like, well, there are 18,000 DPS and no tanks whatsoever, so now you don't get to do anything because there are no tanks. It's like, oh, it sucks to be you. No, it's good that you have that kind of thing. So why don't we talk real quick about the open beta, because I understand just launched, and what kind of information are you hoping to get from this open beta, and who's able to play the open beta? Obviously,
Everybody's able to play.
there you go.
So, my mom's on there playing by herself. So if anyone would like to join my mom, just, get a free aq3d.com, get a free account, and no matter what device you're on, hop on. Today, we have a seasonal special holiday that is called Mogloween. It's like our Halloween, but we have these Moglins, and they're the cute little, well, except for Zorback, he's evil, but with these cute little Moglins, and the legend goes that on Mogloween they turn into these giant hulking Moglinsters, and everybody puts on masks so that they don't get eaten. And at least that was the original story. That was 14 years ago, and the story's evolved, and we added this cauldron and the Cauldron Sisters and candy theme. So literally, while we were on this interview, we just released Mogloween in game. Town went dark. It's now full of glowing pumpkins. There's a haunted house adventure. There's a giant pumpkin lord, and the Elder Gord Thulu is the boss monster.
Yeah, no, and definitely go check that out. And I just typed into Google Moglin. Moglin, obviously, there's your adorable character. But yeah, no, it's
it's like, let me check to see if this is a real thing. Are you just making this up, man? Did you just join my thing? No.
I had to see it for myself, and the character is definitely there, and it's good that you have a whole new experience. That's going to be running through Halloween, or because obviously seasonal things are like limited time kind of deals, right?
Yeah. So if you want to see Town all in its dark glory, go check out the game this week. Next week or two, it'll be accessible through, there's a teleporter crystal in town, and you can go hop on that, and you can play that event till it's removed, and then the seasonal items won't be again until next year.
Right. All right, and perfect. And you mentioned some of the some of the platforms. You mentioned iOS, Android, PC, on Steam, all those different things. I mean, what would you say was kind of the optimal? Because I know when games are released on like PC and console, it's like some prefer PC, some prefer console. What would you recommend people kind of check this out on?
Well, it runs great on all the devices, to be honest. I mean, it's really an incredible mobile experience. If whatever you're more comfortable playing games on, and it is a true like 3D MMO. It's not one of those like camera locked down kind of MMOs, so you can like free look with your camera and explore. If you play on your PC, the only negative, well, not the only one, but one of the core negative things we're getting is it has a very mobile interface, and we knew that was going to be temporary. We had a unified interface so we could do development as fast as possible. But now this week we're working on putting a PC-specific interface on, and you'll be able to switch that back and forth. So if you like the more classical PC-looking MMO interfaces, give us about a week and you'll be happy.
There you go. And again, there's that emphasis on active, kind of active development. Obviously, beta, that is what beta is for. As well as for feedback, but it's good to hear that it's going to keep on changing. So when will the game proper be released? Like, when is beta ending, and when is AQ3D officially going to be ready to go?
Well, we have a saying in our community: when it's ready, o'clock. But if I was to take a best guess, I would say summer of next year will probably be fully ready for prime time. All right,
summer, and that's not too far away, but. Obviously, you say summer, and there's a lot of development, I'm sure, that you do behind the scenes that I'm sure your programmers that you were just talking to, when you say summer, they say fat chance. But
you can almost, if you just listen, you can almost hear them banging their heads on the tables right now.
Exactly. So what is the business model for this? Is it going to be a subscription?
It's terrible. We're never gonna survive. The game's completely free. You can log on, and we're being very careful not to make it paid to play. So you can get almost anything in the game through ridiculous amounts of gameplay.
Right.
But if you want things faster, if you want to speed up crafting, if you want to instantly get items, you can pay with our microcurrency, which is called Dragon Crystals. And there is a one-time upgrade called Guardian, which of course goes back to the original Guardians. That the reason why, and thank all of you Guardians out there who have made this possible. It's the reason, everything's we've been able to do is here.
Right.
And we went back to that model where a one-time purchase, which also comes with a bunch of the microcurrency, will give you Guardian status. You can go into the Guardian Tower. And in addition to the main storyline, which we're going to be running, through the course of, season 1 of the game, the Guardians are going to have a parallel story that will intertwine with the main story. So by becoming a Guardian, you'll get bonus content in the storyline.
And definitely go check out being a Guardian. Adam, I swear to you, this went by so fast. We have to get going. Thank you for joining us on the show, and thank you for telling us all about AdventureQuest. We'll have a link on our website. Check that out. We'll be back with more Computer
Thank
America.
you very much.
Looking for a best friend? Brother Wolf Animal Rescue has your best friend waiting just for you. The mission of Brother Wolf Animal Rescue is to help build a sustainable, no-kill community where no dogs or cats are ever killed for population control, where true euthanasia is reserved only for animals who are irremediably suffering or for animals who are truly a threat to society and with no hope of rehabilitation. Brother Wolf staff and volunteers go door to door, neighborhood by neighborhood, to educate citizens about local resources available for at-risk pets and to help their families connect with those resources. Brother Wolf's community-based approach to no-kill helps keep family pets healthy, happy, and in their homes and out of the local shelter system in the first place. For more information or to make a tax-deductible donation to this wonderful 501c3 organization, visit their website at www.bwar.org. Help to realize Brother Wolf's vision when no animal is euthanized for lack of a home.
Who's a good boy?
Hi, this is Craig Crossman, host of the Computer America Show. You have important meetings to schedule. Your company's getting ready for its IPO, and you're in charge of the PTA fundraiser this month. So how do you coordinate everyone to be available at the same time? Are you still using emails, phone calls, even text messages to schedule meetings with a group of people? How's that working out for you? That's so great, huh? It's a fact that every day, millions of people suffer from scheduling headaches. Well, with Doodle, scheduling meetings with a group of people is quick and easy. With Doodle, you can easily propose available times to each member. Each one checks off the times that they're available, and then you simply pick the time that works best for the group, all in an easy-to-read display that integrates with your existing calendar. Nothing could be more simple. Give Doodle a try for free, and like millions of Doodle users, you'll truly see how easy it is to find the perfect date and time for all your meetings. That's www.doodle.com.
No, I don't know why a UPS doesn't have a backup light. Hi, I'm Marty Winston with a News Tips Bulletin Review for Computer America, this time Onyx beacons. You don't need a pair to use the Bluetooth beacon service, so nearby transmitters can trigger events in handset apps, from product promos to directions across a campus or a building to where you're going. Onyx beacons make some delightful transmitters. They can be Apple side iBeacon or Android side Eddystone units, and they have online tools for running campaigns with these. Their smaller Beacon 1, midway between the size of a checker and a York peppermint patty, runs for months on a coin cell. The larger Enterprise Beacon, about as big as a DVD 10-pack, uses 2 or 4 AA cells for USB power. Their hand setup had no problem seeing and identifying all 6 of the units they sent us. Bottom line, we have plans for deploying Onyx beacons in our project house, and we couldn't be happier with how they work. Marty Winston, News Tips Bulletin for Computer America.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. Once again, I want to thank Mr. Adam Bohn for being here on the show. It was a lot of fun. That was definitely more of an hour interview rather than half an hour interview, but we got a lot of good information out there. And again, definitely everyone go check out aq3d.com and join in on their open beta, free to play, all the good stuff on Steam, Google Play, Android, on Android, Apple, or computer, whatever floats your boat. Definitely go check that out. And again, we will have them back on. I want to say, a little bit closer to when the, next summer, he mentioned, when the game was supposed to be released. We'll invite them back on and we'll talk about just how far they've come and what has changed. but that was a lot of fun. So again, Adam, if you're listening, thank you so much for being on the show here. Okay, now with that being said, we are going to jump right into our second guest, and our second guest is from a company called Markforged 3D Printing, and they make 3D printers. And yes, we've had 3D printing companies on the show here before, but it's a field that is changing rapidly, changing all the time, and we're here to talk about their newest products. So help me welcome onto the show, Mr. Jonathon Reilly, who is the VP of Product Management. And again, this is Markforged. So yeah, John, welcome onto the show. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. And so, like I said, 3D printing, 3D printing, I want to say about 2 or 3 years ago, it's just exploded. Your machines don't explode. Let's make that clear. I mean, like the scene of hobbyists and the idea of 3D printing in homes and schools, things like that. Everyone seemed to come out with a 3D printer because of the possibilities. So why don't you tell us some of the background of Markforged and just what it is that you guys do?
Yeah, so you're right there. The applications are pretty much endless, and it's one of the really interesting things about additive manufacturing or 3D printing is that if you can imagine something and then draw it up in a computer-aided design program, you can sort of create it right there wherever you're at. And like you mentioned, we've seen sort of a very big growth in the maker community and among schools and educational institutions around this capability set, because there's so much you can do to create new different types of parts, sometimes with complex geometries that would be very difficult to manufacture in other ways. And then, sometimes for a lot less cost than it would take if you were to use a traditional manufacturing method, particularly for parts that you're doing in reasonably low volumes. Instead of having to build a whole bunch of tooling to go make those parts, you can now just sort of print them. And so that's kind of the background where Markforged gets interesting. And what we do that's sort of special and unique is we 3D print composites. And specifically, that means we can actually lay down continuous carbon fiber within the matrix of the part that comes off the printer. Mm-hmm. And this is sort of differentiated from those first couple of applications you mentioned, because we make parts that are incredibly strong, stronger than aircraft grade aluminum. These parts, we shot a video of one of our parts, just a little chain link that we printed on one of the printers, and it picked up 22,000 pounds before it broke, to give you an idea of the sort of strength that we can print in these parts. So that's the weight of a school bus, if you're having a hard time imagining it. So that's sort of our unique differentiator, is that we'll print carbon fiber into the part and make it incredibly strong.
Yeah, that is definitely something different, because again, we've had them on the show before, but we've had them on the show, kind of in the capacity of, well, if you need this little cable holder, then you can print out this cable holder, or if you want to make a toy, you can make a toy. Where do you see the applications for your 3D printer? Because obviously 22,000 pounds, unless your kid is the Hulk, then I don't see why you need that kind of durability in, something simple. So where does Markforged 3D, kind of differentiate, or where do they fit into the marketplace?
Yeah, so the most popular application so far is in sort of jigs, jaws, tools, and fixtures. So if you imagine like sort of the manufacturing process itself, there's a lot of now automated manufacturing happening with robotic arms, with effectors on the end of those arms that accomplish varying tasks. You can now print parts that go on the end of these robotic arms that fit your specific application. If you have, we have a customer who's an automotive manufacturer who was using aluminum in their line for certain parts that were breaking, and they were able to replace those parts with 3D printed components, and now the line runs smoothly. So there's a lot of sort of manufacturing applications for these strength parts, but it's not just limited to that space, because there's plenty of other places where you can think about the need for end-use parts that have a lot of strength in them. So, pretty much you name it, like all of the every branch of the military, every major aerospace company, they're all already owners of our printers. Aerospace is in particular very familiar with using composites, because when you get a composite part, not only do you get that great strength, but you also get a very low weight ratio to the strength. So for anything that you need to get in the air or space, these are particularly compelling parts.
Yeah, and absolutely. That's one of the benefits of again 3D printing is that, when it comes to, like little designs, like you said, just get, the computer aided design blueprints for them, and you can print them over and over and over again for relatively low cost compared to mass manufacturing. But one thing that you've mentioned a little bit earlier that I think differentiates yourself. You mentioned this. I believe you said carbon nano. I always mix up carbon nanotube, carbon nanofiber, but carbon.
It's a continuous strand of carbon, or a bundle of strands of carbon fiber that are laid within the part.
Right. So where did you come up with that idea, and just and just how do how did you develop a machine to actually use something like that? Because I haven't heard of that before.
Well, I wasn't around at the beginning, but our CEO is an aerospace engineer from MIT, and in his past he was working a lot on various carbon fiber wing type devices that he was building, and he was realizing some of the constraints that you're faced with when using sort of sheets of carbon fiber to create these parts, because you have to glue them down and shape them into the orientation that you want, and it's pretty intensive. And I guess they were it was your traditional garage startup where he and some of his friends got together and started talking about it, and wondered if it would be possible, and then went off and made it happen, to actually build the ability to do this. And it's actually a pretty complicated process because you have a whole range of inputs to get it right. You have the hardware, which is the printer itself, which has to have a special print system, extruder, and nozzle that handles that carbon fiber strand, which is an additional piece off of most 3D printers. And then the software to drive that system, both to, we have a very, very simple software interface. You just upload your part into our cloud software. It's called Eiger. And then you can, in that software running just in a Chrome window, go in and lay the carbon fiber reinforcement out throughout the part however you need it so that you get the strength you want. And then that serves it back down to the printer, which then uses the software to drive that around throughout the part in increasingly added layers. That's why it's called additive manufacturing. It prints it sort of one layer at a time. Right. And so that whole system kind of needed to be developed together. And to do that right is, takes material science for, creating the carbon fiber and how it behaves as it's printed into the part, plus software for driving the print head right to get it to fit the right places and laying it out within the part, and the hardware of the entire structure to make sure that that's done reliably and repeatably. So it's sort of an incredibly complex problem, but at the end of it, you get these parts that are very interesting and unique and incredibly strong.
Yeah, and that has always been kind of the trade-off that you had with with 3D printing. I mean, they've been using additive manufacturing since 80s, 90s. It's been around in the in that kind of work in the workforce for a long time. But when it came to first the hobbyist, and now you can get some 3D printers for like $300-400, like MakerBot and the whatnot. They're relatively cheap, but when they're relatively cheap like that, they only take extruded plastic. It's very, very small things, like nothing that you want to you're talking about things like aircraft applications, nothing that you want to jeopardize your life by flying using a MakerBot made wing, if you could make something like that. So I mean, but with this though, how big is the trade-off? Because I mean, it would make sense if if, and again, we're going to talk about in a little bit, let me make sure I have this right, the Mark X, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I mean, what is kind of the trade-off for the price of a Mark X compared to the strength of going with something industrial, kind of more traditional manufacturing? Is it much cheaper?
Yeah, at the end of the day, one of the things that we very easily sort of slot in and start to replace is a lot of aluminum parts that are made by CNC machining. And so in the development process and manufacturing process in a lot of existing industries, there's this long development cycle that involves designing that part in CAD, sending it off to a machine shop where they CNC that part out of a block of aluminum, subtractive manufacturing. They're cutting away the aluminum to get to your part and then send it back to you. That part isn't right. You need to make some changes to it. The lead time on getting it cycled through a machinist could be, 4 or 5 weeks. And then you get the part back, you make some changes, and you rinse and repeat. And that could be 2 or 3 cycles until you get to your end ideal design. Now that you can 3D print a part that has the same strength and you can have it the next day. And so saving that time on the design iteration process, and it's about 1/10 of the cost of that machined aluminum process. So the parts are a lot more affordable, and you get them a lot faster. And so you can iterate quicker and start to get to your end result. And then now, like, you can actually use the parts off of the printer in your end application. So I think it's a little bit different from the early maker 3D printers, in that those were designed for prototyping, where kind of looking at the cosmetic finish. Now you can actually test the part in sort of a functional prototype way with the strength of the application. And more and more customers are actually just using the parts because they realize they're strong enough to stand up to their environment. So that's the trade-off. And you save money and time is why people are doing it.
Right. So where would you see, Markforged products? Are you seeing them, entire businesses kind of shaped around, well, if this car manufacturer wants this, and they've, farm out the project to a company with a Markforged product? Or do you see this, or and again, this is kind of snowballing or, spitballing a couple of years in the future here, but do you see this like in every single car workshop, or do you see this in every single I just saw a picture of a bike pedal that was printed using your product. Is this kind of like just kind of like a vending machine of any part you could possibly need, or is this going to be something that companies are going to have to invest in, and then they're going to get work for Markforged products?
Yeah, so there's actually 2 interesting models here. One is, I think any company who's frequently making parts where strength is required, we should be the go-to additive manufacturing solution for that. Because we're making parts that are stronger and cheaper than has ever been done before. But for any individual who would like a strong part for their application, there's these companies called service bureaus who buy a bunch of different 3D printers, and different 3D printers have different strengths. There's some that'll even print metal. Some are really good at making sort of a cosmetically accurate prototypes with a lot of different colors in them. And these service bureaus, you can pretty much send your part to and select sort of what you're interested in for that part. I mean, they'll even CNC it for you if you want, and then they'll ship you back the part. So it really just depends on, there's some companies have IP constraints or other reasons that would not allow them to share their parts externally. Those ones likely buy the machines. If you're not doing a lot of parts, or you just want to see what they're like, you can go get sample parts from the service bureaus or farm your parts to them for some smaller runs. But pretty quickly, a lot of our customers see that if they're making good use of the machine, that it pays for itself versus going through one of those service bureaus. So it kind of depends on what your needs are as a end user, so to speak. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. But I think one thing that might help a little bit more, for myself, and I'm sure the listeners, but more for myself, who are some of your customers? I mean, are you finding them, again, in the automotive industry or in prototyping? Like who's actually really interested?
They're all over. Lots in aerospace, automotive, like pretty much every branch of the military. Like I said, NASA has several of our printers, Nike, Google, Philips, Amazon, Nissan, you pretty much name it. It's a wide variety of companies that have applications where they need strong parts. So we've seen our printers just go across the board. I could list companies forever, but some of their applications are private. We don't talk about those. It really is the people who are sort of ahead of the curve on understanding capability sets in 3D printing sort of move first, and that's why like a lot of our early customers were aerospace firms or the military who's doing sort of advanced research. on different parts. So that's where some of the early traction has been. But more and more, it's people making jigs, jaws, tools, and fixtures for the manufacturing process.
Right.
There's a customer, Dixon Valve, who's featured on our website. They just make valves, and they have robot arms that pick them up and move them, and they print our parts to accomplish that task.
Very no, and it makes a lot of sense. So before we get into the actual product, and again, we're going to talk about the Mark X, but before we get into the products in general, let's talk about kind of where you see 3D printers fitting into everyday life. Because when 3D printing, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago out at CES, we saw so many different companies out there that I think their idea of a 3D printer was that you were going to have a 3D printer that was going to print you a steak using a different kind of ink, and then you were going to go into your car and it was going to have a 3D printer for whatever stupid thing that you need, and then like they were trying to cram a 3D printer into every single aspect of our lives. Where do you see 3D printing in general, not just your products, but in general? Where do you see that fitting into 5-10 years down the road?
Yeah, so this is always a bit dangerous because I don't want to be the person who says that no one will ever need a computer in their home. But I think that it doesn't really make all that much sense to throw a traditional 3D printer that's capable of making three-dimensional parts in people's homes. One reason is because many people are not particularly adept at using computer-aided design software. Certainly engineers are, but that's not your everyday household. And so, I think that they sort of more appropriately live in what you might think of as a last mile distribution center. Think something like an Amazon warehouse that's in your city that you order the parts online. If you need a replacement part for you name it, they can manufacture that part like right next to your city and ship it to you in a single day, sort of on demand. That type of application is, I think, where it will most likely go first. If you think about a longer time frame, the ability to build things in an additive fashion probably has a lot of interesting applications, and it may end up in homes. But I think that was probably overhyped early. I think it's much more like getting into real like end use components, becoming a part of the manufacturing process, increasing speed, improving costs. Becoming more and more viable against a larger and larger chunk of sort of existing manufacturing technologies. And as we can continue to push that envelope forward, now you'll start to unlock more and more applications. But from a consumer perspective, I mean, the first thing I did when I started in 3D printing was put a printer in my home. But I haven't yet printed any parts for my house. So I'm fairly technical. So I don't see that in the next 5 to 10 years, but who knows beyond that time frame.
Right. And there's something to be said for on-demand production and customized production, because not this whole one size fit all, make 10, 15, 100,000 products and ship them all out there that are exactly the same. That's going to go out the window, I think, with 3D printing, where hey, you can build them as you need them and customize them for what you need them for. It's a very, very interesting future. So I think we should just jump right into some of the products that you actually have, because I've been mentioning the Mark X offhandedly, but I'm also seeing here the Mark II, as well as I think you even have your own AutoCAD software. So wherever you want to start with these products, why don't you tell us what you have to offer?
Yeah, so we can start with the Mark X, which is really the industrial size printer that we just launched. It's the biggest printer in our lineup. It'll print a part that's 330 millimeters by 250 millimeters in XY and up to 200 in Z. It's the printer that you buy for your serious manufacturing application. It's a professional printer. It's got a lot of features built into it that are reasonably new to additive manufacturing. The particular interesting one, we support a range of plastics in our printers. This printer prints with Onyx, which is a chopped carbon embedded nylon that we've created. So you get like incredibly good looking, high quality surface finish on your parts. It supports all of the different continuous fibers that we print. So that's from Kevlar to, fiberglass to carbon fiber. It's got this really interesting new feature, which is it's got a laser measurement. It's a micrometer, which is a measurement device on the print head.
Right.
And during the printing process, you can actually scan the part very accurately and go in there and take measurements and make sure that that part meets your dimensional tolerances that you're trying to create, which is a necessary thing when you're making these end-use application parts, that they're like incredibly accurate and designed to meet the spec that you need. So that's the Mark X. It's our latest printer. It's our 3rd generation. It's got sort of the highest level of design and all of the drivetrain and everything. It's an incredibly great printer. And that's the new one. It's at the top of our line. And then in the middle and bottom of our line, we have the Mark II, which is the 2nd generation printer. It's got a smaller print bed and smaller print volume. And it doesn't have that laser measurement feature, but it also is capable of printing those strong reinforced parts as well. And the one at the top of the Mark II line, which is called our Enterprise printer, prints that chopped carbon plastic also, which is sort of the first industry all-up system that's capable of that. So you can have both good-looking, strong parts, and then incredible dimensional accuracy and really big print sizes. And that's sort of the length and depth of the line.
Well,
now,
and just just looking at the products here, I'm sure there's more to it than this, but again, just with the naked eye, the difference between the Mark II and the Mark X, it looks like one has a cabinet built underneath it and the other one doesn't. So what is because again, like if you just built a cabinet and set the the Mark II on top of it, that's what the Mark X would look like. So what are some of the internals like down there? Is that like a computer?
What you're seeing there is that it preserved the industrial design. So if the listeners haven't seen one of the printers, they're almost very Apple-esque in their industrial design. They're all made out of anodized aluminum. And so we preserved that when we stepped from the Mark II to the Mark X. But what's a little bit harder to see is that the size increased quite a bit, which is how you get those larger prints. So we liked our industrial design and decided to keep it in the line. It does have a cabinet underneath it. That cabinet contains the dry box. So it's not really a got you, but thing that you need to take care with some of the materials that you 3D print is that they don't absorb too much moisture, because it can cause problems in your printing process. So now that you can put your spool of material in the dry box inside of that cabinet and it'll feed directly up into the printer. The continuous fibers, of course, you can load directly into the printer themselves. They're not as sensitive to moisture. So that's what you've got there.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense then. Thank you for pointing that one out. And then just real quick, this eager software, which is organized, reinforced, and optimized prints from anywhere. So yeah, what is eager software?
So it's pronounced Eiger, and it's actually, I think, one of the most interesting things about Markforged is it's this incredibly powerful cloud software tool where you simply upload your print file into the cloud. It's designed from the ground up to work for organizations, so you can add multiple people and multiple printers to your organizational instance. And everybody can see the printers available. You can share parts, iterate on parts. Very easily reinforce a part with carbon fiber, put multiple parts down on a print, and then hit print, and sort of manage the entire print process. It's very simple. It's just basically upload, reinforce, and print. And that workflow is one of the best designed software experiences in the industry. Of course, there are some customers who, for whatever reason, aren't allowed to have their parts in the cloud, particularly some of these high clearance customers. And so we do offer an offline version of the software, but the very best experience is this ability to really share your parts across your organization, have multiple people access them, and then be able to just pick an open printer that's in your organization and hit print when you're ready to go. So it's an incredibly powerful software tool, and a lot of the experience of getting a good result in your end part is really based on your software and its interface with the printer itself. So that's where we spend a lot of our time and effort to make sure that it's right.
Yeah, definitely. And well, I'm sure, as you know, that intellectual property, there's a lot of hoops to jump through there, and if you unfortunately do work for a company that does not want their IP stolen, then the easiest way is to make sure it never touches anything labeled the cloud. So nice to hear that you have an offline version as well. And again, I'm not too much into 3D printing myself, but does it take like would the software or would your printers take files from, let's say, AutoCAD is a friend of the show, but just from other software, design software, or
Yeah, absolutely. Any CAD program, you can output the print file and
90 seconds.
directly into the cloud. So it's pretty much every one of the CAD programs supports the output, so it's no problem.
Perfect. And again, you can check that out. Again, it's markforged.com. We have a link in the show notes, link on our homepage. It's going to stay there for about 10 days. And, this, John, this was a lot of fun, and definitely go check it out, because let's say someone wanted to go look at one of these things, or, would you say the online experience is probably the best one, or is there like a reseller or, around the world?
60 seconds.
So the right way to get in touch with us would just be to fill out the I'm interested part of the website, and we'll reach out to you and get you in touch with a reseller in your local area so that you can go see a demo or talk to them about the feature set. And if you have questions, you can just send us a note and we'll be happy to answer them.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely go check that out. Or hey, listen to Computer America, because I think we covered a lot of really good information here. So, John, hopefully you guys are out at CES this year. I'll be sure to make sure to check you guys out if you are. And and again, looking forward to seeing what next time you guys have a product out, come back on the show and talk about what you guys have changed, because very, very interesting stuff.
Will do. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And for everyone else out there who's listening, thank you for tuning into the Computer America Show. We had a lot of fun on the show today.
10 seconds.
And we have another great show for you tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow for Dickie Bartolo, the Giz Wiz, right here. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye. And everyone on the video portion, thank you for sticking that out. And it was lots and lots of fun to bring the show for you today. We're going to have Mad Magazine's Maddest Writer and Dick DeBartolo. He's always a lot of fun. He finds gadgets all over the world. He goes to trade shows, and he makes sure that he finds a lot of cool gadgets to share with us here on Computer America. So check that out. See you again, same time, same place, bright and early tomorrow afternoon, 4 to 5 Eastern. So have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.